What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome in to the Breeders' Cup Saturday edition of the original Call to Post here on the network. We're going to break down Breeders' Cup Saturday at Del Mar. And of course, when I say we, I mean myself and my friend and co-host, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. The sun's out. It's Halloween and getting a little bit of chill in the morning air, so it's starting to feel like fall finally in San Diego. But as far as this weekend goes, what do you say? It's the big one. Breeders' Cup Saturday features 9 races, 113 entries, and $23 million in purse money. I mean, wow, including that big Longines Breeders' Cup Classic for $7 million. This is the day of day for horse racing in North America.
Amen. Really the world as well, with obviously a lot of international flavor. And I think for the Breeders' Cup, at least on the turf side of things, we've seen kind of the usual suspects over the years. The Charlie Applebys, the Aidan O'Briens, and they're still there, but as I kind of mentioned yesterday, and just a heads up, Future Star Friday podcast is out. If this podcast is out, then that Future Star Friday podcast is out. Check that out. But mentioned it yesterday that Japan has kind of turned into, a budgeting power. I think 11 of the 13 Breeders' Cup races or 11 of the 14 Breeders' Cup races, we are seeing Japanese bred or trained horses. And I do want to give out a little shout out to David Grenning at the DRF. I read an article today kind of breaking down why Del Mar is just a little more manageable than Kentucky. And it's more than just mileage with Del Mar. It is a 9-hour flight from Japan to Del Mar, and the quarantine process happens on site. So there's no extra movement. Fly, land into the place, boom. Kentucky, and for example, if you're talking Keeneland or you're talking Churchill, they are flying 17 hours to Chicago to do their quarantine, which I believe is 40 hours, and then a 17-hour bus drive from Chicago to Kentucky. So again, just a little bit of an idea of why we are seeing more Japanese horses, and maybe why we are, and I believe the same can be said for Santa Anita. Very similar, at least there. But I do wonder if maybe that's why we're seeing obviously more Japanese horses, and maybe that's why we're seeing back-to-back Del Mar Breeders' Cups, because this is part one, if you will, as 2025 Breeders' Cup will also be right down the road as well from us. But with that being said, 9 races to break down. It's going to be a long one, folks, so buckle in. We are going to dive in, going chronologically, except for the Classic. Just a heads up, Classic is going to fall right in the middle of this race 8. We are going to put that to the end. We want you to stick around for the end, so we are not going to go chronologically with race 8, but other than that, we are. And we are going to start, of course, this is going to be Saturday, race number 4, 3 really good races before it as well. But race number 4, the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. We are going 7 furlongs for 3-year-old filly and mares. 7 furlongs on the dirt with a nice purse of $1 million. Raider Jim, I'll give you the first crack at this one. What are your thoughts, Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint?
Yeah, well, how about that? Yesterday I was made a comment after we were done, and I said I didn't see Mike Smith anywhere on the program for Friday, but here he is. Race 4, he's on the favorite at 5-2. Number 9, Ways and Means, came in 4th in the Kentucky Oaks. The last two he had a G1 in the test stakes, won that one. Also it did the G2 Gallant Bloom, won that one. Horse is looking good, definitely the favorite right here. The other one I like, though, is 4, Vava at 4-1. That's Irad Ortiz and Sherry DeVoe. In 24 has had 3 Grade 1 wins plus, 3 Grade 1 races. Got a show, got a place, and then won the Derby City Distaff. Now, Number 6, Society, is at 3-1 right now, and that's Tyler Gaffalone and Steve Asmussen. What I don't like, or I shouldn't say don't like, but why I think 3-1 is being a little too generous. This horse has been off for 7 months, has not raced since November of 23 through June of 24, and then has only had 2 races this year. And it did a show and a grade 3 race, the Chicago Stakes, did get into the winner's circle in the grade 1 ballerina handicap, but I think that's just a little too much time off. I'm sure it was, good rest and in great shape right now, but I think these other horses have been more on track, no pun intended, and I think they're going to be able to run a little better pace. My underneath horse that's probably going to make it onto my ticket and a better value as far as the betting side of things goes is number 10, Sila, I think is how you say that. 10-1, 7 races in 24, has finished in the money in all the races. Winner's circle, 3 straight races in May and June, got a place in a grade 1 race. I think this horse can really bring it to the pack, and don't be surprised if you see number 10 finishing in the money and ruining somebody's ticket.
Yeah, might be my ticket actually. But no, actually I do have 10 actually underneath as well. Get there in a moment. I actually do like Society here. The layoff, not ideal, but what I like is, if you go back to last year, this horse was pretty much 2-1 in this very race at Santa Anita. Didn't run incredibly well. A big regression, I should say, dropping down from running in the triple digits down to running only a 90, came back this year. I like the Chicago, ran a 96. And then the thing I really like about the ballerina is it beat a lot of the contenders I believe you're going to see in this race. Ways and Means was not there, but did beat Cilia and Vava, who I really like as well in this race. So gave a slight edge there, but it will be interesting to see how these Breeders' Cup Day, the morning lines, it's always kind of crazy. It seems like inevitable 1 or 2 races. It seems like the morning lines just kind of flip on their heads. It'll be interesting to see if that's what happens here. And then as I kind of mentioned, Vava is one that I have on my ticket as well. She had pretty much all eyes on her in the ballerina. She was essentially an even money favorite. And I mean, you just got to be honest. She failed that test. I think she gets an opportunity at redemption. Irad Ortiz aboard. And I really do like Vava, but for me, obviously Society got the job done last time. So I think that's a situation that could happen here as well. I also really do like Ways and Means. 5-2, obviously that morning line favorite. And then Chad Brown. I mean, what more can you say? What was it, 2 years ago? It seemed like he was winning every single race. But in terms of Ways and Means, what I really like is you talked about that Kentucky Oaks, obviously, 5.5, 6-1 in the Kentucky Oaks, finished 4th, but was 10.5 lengths off the lead in that one. So wasn't a great showing. Since then has done everything correctly. Obviously that allowance race, big class jump, but did take that class jump, as you mentioned, in the test and the grade 2 Gallant Bloom. Really do like Ways and Means, like to see a little more value there. And then the underneath as well, I do like Cilia as well. I think this is a filly, and a lot of times in the Breeders' Cup, you will see certain horses. You will never see these horses get numbers like this again, or at least rarely outside of a Breeders' Cup or a top grade 1. And I think Cilia at 10-1 is just tremendous value. But, full disclosure, we're going to need to see a career best out of her. But as a 4-year-old at the end of a really good year, I'm willing to at least put that on my ticket. One final one that this is kind of an interesting, I guess, intriguing horse. It's the 3-horse Pleasant. Never even ran in a graded stakes race, and it took 13 months off before running at Los Alamitos this year, and ran well. But again, Los Alamitos, with all due respect, that is a massive, that's a tier lower than Del Mar. And everything else, you're going, what is this horse doing here? And then you look at the trainer, and it's Bob Baffert. And for me, that goes, okay, hold on. You're not going to see too many morning lines of Bob Baffert horses at 12-1. Again, I don't know. I think this is more of a curiosity play. and might not even be a play, but just a curiosity of what we're seeing here. Why is Bob Baffert putting this horse here, or Juddmonte, however you want to look at it. So keep an eye there on Pleasant. I really want to see why that horse is here, and see if it's worth it, especially with Baffert essentially holding that clock, if you will. But moving on to race number 5. This is going to be the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. 3-year-olds and up, a purse of $1 million. We are going 5 furlongs on the turf, and here come the international brigade. Every turf race here in the Breeders' Cup, it's kind of like almost like the Ryder Cup, if you understand golf. I'll get this one started. First horse that jumps out for me and has to jump out for everyone might be, I don't want to say the easiest shot of the day, but I would say one that I feel most confident in, and that's the 9. It's Cogburn. This is the best turf sprinter in the world. Irad Ortiz is aboard. All 3 times Irad has been aboard, we've seen 2 107s and a 114, including a 114 in the hyper. Hasn't been tested in, months. Actually, probably even going back to last year. And I think the biggest issue for Cogburn will be the value, 7-5, and I think that drops. I think we get closer to even money. So we're going to look a little elsewhere. For me, as I get down to the bottom of my sheet, on the outside, the 12 horse, Bradsell, 7-2. This is a British horse coming over. Best sprinter in Europe, possibly. And it's interesting because European horses not really bred to be sprinters. They're really actually bred to be at least mile horses. So we'll see how Bradsell is coming over, but is the best per sprinter, at least across the pond, if you will. I think this horse might be the only one that's good enough to shock Cogburn. But even that, it's going to take a whole lot to get the job done. A couple other horses I did want to just touch on. These are going to be kind of underneath. Motorious. This is a British horse, at least bred, has been racing in North America for quite some time, and mainly lately, at least, at Del Mar. 3 for 3 at Del Mar. That's great to see for an international horse, kind of that familiarity. And look, I've been a big fan of Fresu, the young up-and-coming jockey here at Del Mar. He gets an opportunity to break into the Breeders' Cup record books, and a really good green flash handicap. Still needs something a little bit more, though. A lot of these underneath, I'm going to need to see career runs. And the final one I'm going to highlight is the 10 horse. And I've been staring at this for a long time. I am not 100% sure. There's a lot of U's and V's in this name, but it's Isavongu. I apologize. It's a South African horse. This is kind of like the South African legend. It's been incredible down under. Well, I guess that's Australia, or at least in the Southern Hemisphere. And coming here to the Breeders' Cup and ran very well at Colonial in its North American debut. Another thing that I really do like about this horse, the workouts have been really, really nice. Pretty much top every single time. Yeah, top every single time that we've seen out of the last 5 workouts. Definite value, long shot there from the South African horse. I almost didn't even talk about it because I was so worried about the name, but had to throw it out there. Raider Jim, your thoughts, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
Yeah, well, you and I are seeing it eye to eye on the first 2 entries, and that's Cogburn 9 and Bradsell 12. I really think Bradsell is going to run quite a race. Again, take down Cogburn, that's a tough thing. But what do we really know about Bradsell? We haven't seen Bradsell. We've seen Cogburn run, but I have not seen Bradsell run. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think that's our 1 and 2 finishers there. My 2 that I put on the underneath, one is the 6, Star of Mystery at 10-1. William Buick on the saddle, Charlie Appleby. This horse has shown signs of speed, very competitive, and I think is definitely going to finish, or has the opportunity to finish in the money. And then the other one that I won't be surprised at all is the 5 horse AG Bullet, also at 10-1. Umberto Rispoli and Richard Baltus are the combination jockey trainer on that one. AG Bullet has put together quite a year, has some nice wins, and has earned a lot of money already, and also shows consistency with the speed. So I like 9, 12, and that's Cogburn and Bradsell. I like 6, Star of Mystery, and probably just above 6, I would put AG Bullet if I was only going to pick 3 horses.
Yeah, I definitely had my eye there on AG Bullet. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I was telling myself, you know, you don't see too often the lifetime stats, 10 runs, 6 wins, and that's it. So maybe a win ticket, and that's it, because this horse is either feast or famine. We're either at the top of the ticket or we're not making the money. But yeah, just little thing that I don't know if I've ever seen that, or at least it's been a long time since I've seen a horse of that caliber. Like, man, you're either getting in the winner's circle or it ain't worth your time. But going to be a very interesting race. Definitely one of the more chalk possibilities of the day on Saturday. So moving right along to race number 6. And I do just want to get out as well. I should probably be throwing this out there. 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific is when all these are going to be started. So this one's listed at 4:21 Eastern, 1:21 Pacific. Time's a little different, I think, this year. But anyways, it is the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Distaff. It is for 3-year-old fillies and up. A purse of $2 million. We are going 1 1/8 miles on the dirt. Raider Jim, your thoughts, the Breeders' Cup Distaff.
Yeah, this is the one race you kind of look at it. It's not that big of a field. There's 10 entries in it. But when you look at it from the betting, you know, handicapping betting, however you want to put it, and it's like, well, it looks like pretty obvious results on this one. So it's the easiest one to pick. It also has no value to it when you look at it that way. Hands down, the favorite is going to be the 2-horse, Torpedo Anna. Irad Ortiz, Todd Pletcher, and let me tell you, the only thing that's going to make this race real exciting is the horses that I picked after that, which is 6, Raging Sea at 7-2, Flavian Pratt and Chad Brown, and 9, Awesome Result, 4-1, Yutaka Take and Yasutoshi Ike. That's the Japanese coalition, and let me tell you, don't be surprised if Awesome Result doesn't upset everybody. Probably not. You really got to, you know, we just said Cogburn, you got to run the race of your life if you're going to beat Cogburn. You probably got to go one step beyond that if you're going to beat Torpedo Anna, especially on the big stage like this. But aside from that, I really didn't see any other entry that I would bother even trying to put underneath, because I just don't see any upsets in this one. I looked, I read, I tried to, but nothing jumped out at me. I don't know how you feel about it.
I completely agree. It's funny. This is the only race. I only have 3 horses I want to talk about. All 3 you just mentioned in that exact order, but you also do understand why. I really, you know, I was staring at Candied and I'm trying to find it, but at the same time, you want to find value and stuff like that, but I almost kind of wish, I mean, personally, I think Torpedo Anna would be 4 or 5-1 if this horse was running in the Classic. This was a horse, or I'm sorry, this horse was a head off of Fierceness in the Travers. I mean, Torpedo Anna ran with the boys. I mean, it was essentially like Kenny McPeak was like, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's see what she can do. And we saw it and we're like, yes. And he's like, let's get back. You know, the Cotillion wasn't a fantastic run, but I don't know. I can't find a fault in this horse other than the value, and I think it's going to drop as well. If you can get this horse at even money, run to the window. And then working your way. Raging Sea. I even kind of put here in my notes that, you know, I don't really love this. I didn't really like the run last time out. I know it was a win. But a massive drop in that buyer score, which I'm not a big fan of. I'd like to see this get closer to 5-1, which if Anna goes the way I expect it to, could be possible. And then, of course, Awesome Result. This is another one of the Japanese horses that I think really, they're not just here to be here. They're here to compete. It's a big class jump, and my goodness, not only are you jumping up in class, but you're facing, I mean, arguably outside of Zenyatta, for me, might be the best filly I've ever seen in Torpedo Anna. And it's kind of one of those races you just kind of sit back, watch, and if you want to bet it, enjoy. But I don't know, and I don't want this to be put into the universe, but the way we've seen modern horse racing, there is a chance is the last time we see Torpedo Anna run, period. The Breeders' Cup is the end of the season for essentially a lot of these horses, and essentially the next day, I believe the Keeneland sales are happening. So it's decision day for a lot of these horses, and as we saw from Flightline a few years ago, finishing up his 3-year-old season undefeated, straight to stud. And I also saw something, a 2.5% stake in Flightline's breeding rights. Get 2.5 million gets you 2.5%. So do the math on Flightline. But anyways, yeah, so just enjoy this race. I don't know if there's any value there for you. And like you kind of said, don't even waste your time underneath. If someone does come in and blow things up, you tip your hat and move on to the next one, but it wasn't on the cards. That's just kind of the way I got to look at it. But moving on to race number 7. This will be just after 2 o'clock on the West Coast, just after 5 on the East Coast. Do the math in between. It is going to be the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Turf. We are going 1.5 miles on the Del Mar Turf. It's going to be 3 turns. Just throwing that out there. The purse of $5 million, the second richest race of the day. Of course, only to the Classic. And yeah, let's get this run started. I'll get this one going. First one that jumps out to me is going to be Rebels Romance. I do believe this is a horse that won in, let me just make sure I have it correct, 2022 won this race. Yes, won this race in 2022. That was at Keeneland. Has kind of taken some steps back. It's on my notes, I put this race gives me indigestion. This is a very, very tough race for me to handicap. I'm going to give this horse the edge because it has beaten some of the other contenders. And I think this horse has been really good this year. But it's very tough race for me to handicap. But that is going to be at the top of my ticket. Right underneath them, they're going to be kind of right next to each other. The 5-horse, Jerabi, the French horse, and I'm probably butchering that name because I don't really speak French, but this horse is going to be 4-1. It's been very, very quick turnaround, which I'm not a massive fan of, and kind of the reason why I gave Rebels Romance a little bit of an edge. This horse last raced in France October 5th. So, coming all the way over across the pond and across the states here to Del Mar. That's a quick turnaround, something to keep in mind. And another class jump, and the distance is a question mark. And you kind of starting to feel why I'm getting indigestion. These are horses at the top of my ticket, and I feel like I'm punching holes in them. But underneath that will be the 6-horse Farbridge. I think this horse is obviously going to need to improve on last time out, but I think this is probably the best chance for the American contingent, or at least the American bred contingent in this race. Obviously a very heavily international flavor with these long turf races. And the last one I did want to touch on very underneath, 15-1 is the 10-horse. It's an Irish horse, Wingspan. I like the progression that I've seen from this horse. Again, we're still going to need another massive step up, but I do think at 15-1 and just how tough this horse or this race is for me personally to handicap, maybe find something underneath, see if something crazy can happen in one of these long races. But at the end of the day, Wingspan is going to need kind of a lot. But I could possibly see it at 15-1, pay $1 or $2 to see what happens. Raider Jim, your thoughts, Breeders' Cup Turf.
Well, I'll tell you, I have the first 3 just like you do. Rebels Romance at 5-2. I mean, just a wonderful horse. Performs well, 5-2, not a lot of value. I do have the 6-horse second after that, Farbridge at 6-1. That horse, last 2 times out, 2 grade 1s, went to the winner's circle both times. Before that, had a little mishap in the United Nations Stakes, came in 9th, and that's a grade 2. But I think that was just kind of one of those Olympic score things where you throw out the low and you throw out the high and you got something in between. I think Farbridge is going to run a very good race. And then, JRB, or however we want to say that, at 4-1. Now, one thing I question in this race, looking for a fourth horse that I could plug into my ticket, Emily Upjohn, the 2 horse, is at 5-1. I don't understand how that horse was at 5-1. Farbridge is at 6-1, because when you look at the results for Emily Upjohn, there's not a lot of consistency there and not a lot of success in the big races. So that one also, that's one of those things where, again, you just scratch your head and go, well, how did they come up with 5-1 on that horse? I just don't understand. I don't know if you at all looked at Emily Upjohn and what your thoughts are.
I did, but I kind of came to the same realization of you, or, thought process, that this is more, and just kind of reading the DRF kind of notes that they put down. I do wonder if this is more of like the name value, because it sounds like this was a very highly regarded mare that, it says right here, 8 consecutive losses at the grade 1 level. That's not, terrible by any stretch, but I don't know if that's great for a horse coming into a Breeders' Cup. And I agree with you, 5-1.
Because you said it yesterday. These aren't just grade 1 races.
Yeah.
These are Breeders' Cup grade 1 races. It is a different animal. So yeah,
you almost want to call it like something different. Obviously we call it the Breeders' Cup, but like for like, maybe the layman fans, like, no, this is, I don't want to lump this in with, the grade 1 at, Woodbine, with all due respect to Woodbine. A big step up. And I don't know, it just seems like an odd, especially for an international horses. And it would have to tell me as well, this is them shipping this horse over, because 8 straight grade 1 losses, you haven't won a Breeders' Cup win and you're in this year. So this is them, essentially getting an invite and saying, yep, we'll foot the bill. Interesting there. But I did just want to add, you brought up Farbridge, that United Nations, an interesting little tidbit. I was looking at that race, 1 mile and 3/8 in that race. That horse finished 9th. It was only 4 lengths off the lead. I would be very interested. That must be an absolute chaotic. And to 1 mile and 3/8. Normally you see a 9th place finisher 4 lengths off the lead in a 5 furlong sprint race, but I don't know. That was just one that, because I agree. I did see that and I was like, man, 9th place when you brought it up. And then I saw 4. I thought I was missing, and thought I was missing a 1. I thought that was 14 lengths, but yeah. So this is I might take a break, I'll be honest, during the festivities, during the turf. I don't know. It just seems like I can never find the pulse of these turf races. And a lot of it is because of the international contingent. But moving on to race number 9. Again, we are going to skip over. We will go back to race 8 towards the end of this. But race number 9, this is going to be the grade 1 Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf. We are going 1 mile and 3/8. This is going to be for, as I said, filly and mares on that turf. $2 million purse. Raider Jim, your thoughts?
Yeah, I got to go with the favorite. It doesn't matter how many times I look or how many times I read it upside down. Number 4, Warlike Goddess at 5-2. Junior Alvarado and William Mott. This is the horse to beat. Going to set the pace. Going to have to come hard to beat this horse. And if there's a horse that can make a race out of it, there's 2, I believe. One is a good value at 10. The 10 horse, I should say, at 8-1. Moira. I've seen Moira run more than once. I've bet on Moira more than once. Moira has made me money each and every time. Flavian Pratt, Kevin Attard, watch for Moira to make it a good race. The one that might shock everybody, and that's the 9 horse at 15-1. Anisette, Umberto Rispoli, Leonard Powell's the trainer. But Anisette, let me tell you what this horse has been doing. December of 23, won a grade 1. May of 24, won a grade 1. August of 24, won a grade 2, and then got a show in a grade 2 back in September in the Maybe Stakes, the John C. Maybe Stakes. This horse does nothing but succeed and win and ends up in the money on all. You just look going back to December of December of 22, there's a lot of trips to the winner's circle, including the Del Mar Oaks, won the Grade 1 Del Mar Oaks back in August of 23. So this horse has got a lot of fire to it. And again, somewhat familiar with the track. The jockey's definitely familiar with the horse. So I like number 9, Anisette, on my ticket. And then the other one, I'm going to go ahead and throw one more in there on that one, on this one. And that is the 2-horse Full Count Felicia at 12-1. This is another horse. Don't overlook this horse. It's just, let me pull up the record on that one. I had something I wanted to add. Let's have computer issues. Yeah, last 2 times out, won a Grade 2 back in August, won a Grade 1 back in September. Not a long break off or break in between the races. Should be good, should be rested, has been having good workout times as well. Watch the 2-horse. There's your value on this one. 8-1, 15-1, 12-1. And Word Like Goddess is probably, might end up being a 2-1 as far as instead of a 5-2, but still you'll get value with Moira, Anisette, and Full Count Felicia.
Yeah, I agree. Warlike Goddess definitely is at the top. I will, the last time out in the Turf Classic ran very well, kind of got back on track, didn't get into the winner's circle, but that is a Grade 1. Excuse me. I think the bigger thing for Warlike Goddess was just to get back into the triple digits. This was a horse that really struggled this year, was running in Grade 1, 2s, and 3s, but hadn't broke in through triple digits since last year's Turf Classic. This horse obviously did run in last year's Breeders' Cup Turf, which is open for everyone, all the horses, so not just the filly and mare, so kind of gets back into the filly and mare side of things here. The value will be a bit of an issue. I am really, really bullish on Full Count Felicia. I think this might be the best value of the day. I was very high on Moira. The last time we talked about Moira, I believe I have it listed right here, is the EP Taylor, and we built it as Moira versus Fev Rover. And Fev Rover isn't racing, but it was those two. They were going to go at it. Who's it going to be? It was only a question of who's finishing third. Well, no, it was actually Full Count Felicia who got the job done and got it done rather handily, won by 3.5 lengths. I really, really like Full Count Felicia. You talked about 12-1. You got Irad Ortiz aboard. I think this horse is moving in the right direction. You could make the case that the EP Taylor was a flash in the pan, a fluke. That might be what the buyer numbers, or at least the law of averages, would tell you. But you know what? At 12-1, I really, really do think that there's a ton of value with Full Count Felicia. I also do like Moira as well. Again, just my thought process, though, is I got to put Full Count Felicia just a little bit ahead because of the value and because of last time out. But I think Moira in that post position, going to be very interesting. The one thing I am worried about, or maybe not worried about, pretty much all of these horses want to stalk. Everyone wants to be pretty much back. So you wonder what the pace is going to be. And then the other horse I do want to just touch on, it's the 5-horse, Didia. I think this is going to be a horse that's going to be undervalued. Look, last time this horse ran, it was less than even money in the John C. Mabie Stakes and ran really badly. It dropped all the way down to an 81. Before that was 99, 100, 96, 97. So again, I think at 12-1, I think Didia, at least you got to keep an eye on it. Something there. And one horse that I do also, I want to bring up, and I want to get your thoughts on it, Raider Jim. Just because kind of to keep the theme of what were they thinking going. The 3-horse Cinderella's Dream is 4-1. I'm just wondering if you're seeing something that I'm not seeing, but personally, I mean, this horse wasn't good in Great Britain or UAE. I mean, it couldn't break triple digits in the time form, which is measured on a much higher scale than the buyer. and then came here to North America, and I guess somewhat got a little better, but not nearly where you need to be. And this horse is also going to be stretching out as well. I don't know. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on, or if you had any thoughts on Cinderella's Dream.
Same thing. I looked and it's like, okay, am I supposed to decipher some secret code in what I'm reading? Because it wasn't making sense to me. But it goes back to the race before that we were talking about. Same thing. It's like Emily whatever the name, Emily, the horse with the Emily in it. It made no sense.
Yeah, I mean, 6-7 career in the winner's circle. I guess I get that. Like I said, maybe I'm just a little too beholden to the speed numbers, but that does not pan out, especially considering there's so much late speed here. It's kind of crazy. You do wonder. And that might be the biggest problem for Full Count Felicia. She probably is the only one who wants to be on the lead. Might be an issue. But definitely keep an eye on that one. It's going to be a very interesting filly and mare turf. Moving on to the race number 10, it's going to be the Breeders' Cup Sprint. 6 furlongs on the dirt, a purse of $2 million. And yes, diving into this one for me, at the top of my ticket, let me get myself ready here. I don't know if it's the favorite, but it's very close to it. It's Mulligan. You got Flavien Prat aboard, and I think Flavien Prat has been the kind of jockey to get the most out of this horse. Before Flavien Prat came aboard, it was in the high 90s, but in the last 2 times we've seen Mulligan in grade 1 and grade 2, including the Farigo, beating Gun Pilot, who's also going to be in this race, ran a 105. I really like Mulligan here. The post position does give me a little bit of pause, but when you have a jockey like Flavien Prat, I think you can kind of put that off to the side and understand that he has he knows what he's going to do there, and how he's going to attack it. I think this is actually the favorite, the 3-horse Federal Judge. I really do like this one. I am going to give the edge to Mulligan, and this is why. And I'm not 100% sure if this is sound logic. I'm just going to throw it out there. But the reason I am going to give Mulligan the edge over Federal Judge, Flavien Prat has ridden both of these. You would have to assume Brad Cox and Federal Judge's connections wanted Flavien Prat to be on this horse. Flavien Prat chose Mulligan. So again, that's just kind of my thought process. But at the end of the day, Irad Ortiz is certainly not a bad plan B. 3-1. I think trying to find the value between those horses will be the situation. Underneath, I do really like the 4-horse Nakatomi, Wesley Ward and Tylee Gaffleone team up here. The best this horse ran in its career was in this race last year. Obviously, that's not a guarantee that we're going to see another fantastic performance again. I'd like to see it get closer to 8-1, and I think it will, if everything kind of goes the way I expect it to. And there was one other horse I did want to touch on. Excuse me, give me one moment while I find it. It is the 1-horse Raging Torrent. It's going to be on the rail. Doug O'Neill and Fresu aboard as well. Is going to be trying to get that first Breeders' Cup win. I think the only way that this horse really gets the job done is it's going to have to be in a repeat of the Pat O'Brien. And the good news for this horse, that Pat O'Brien was right here. Take 1 furlong off, and this is essentially the same race. It was, of course, at Del Mar. This horse 3 of 4 in the money at Del Mar. 10-1. And again, I think that number is going to get a little bit higher. I think you can find a little bit of value there with Raging Torrent. Raider Jim, your thoughts, the Breeders' Cup Sprint.
Going back to the last race and the conversation we had at the end, and interesting because coming into this race 10, I had a question down that I wanted to ask you about one of your picks. Now I find out Federal Judge, because they have Federal Judge at 3-1, but I'm looking at Federal Judge. It made the winner's circle in a maiden special weight, and then a claiming, and then they tried to put him into a grade 1 where it came in 4th. They backed off. Then it went placing in an allowance optional. winning an allowance optional, put it in a grade 2, and it did win a grade 2 just a few weeks back. I just don't know how that horse gets 3-1, Nakatomi gets 6-1, and Raging Torrent gets 10-1. So Federal Judge, it's kind of very interesting, because even if you look at the workouts,
Yeah.
the workouts aren't making you go, wow, look at that. So it'll be interesting to see. I am with you. You got to, anytime you've got Brad Ortiz holding the reins, you got a chance to win a race. So we'll see what happens with Federal Judge. My number one pick, though, is Mulligan, the 10 horse, 7-2. Again, Flavian Pratt has ridden both of those horses. He knows what he's doing, and he can get the most out of this horse. Raging Torrent is my second pick at the one horse on the rail at 10-1. I think it's going to be Doug O'Neill's big deal for the weekend, to finish in the money with that horse. And then the 4 horse 6-1, Nakatomi. I think Nakatomi's underrated, if you will. 6-1, it's got good value, but I think, don't overlook that horse. That'd be too easy to do. I still see, if you put Nakatomi right next to Federal Judge, and it's a 2-horse race, I just think Nakatomi's going to win.
Yeah, it's kind of similar, when we talk about, March Madness comes around, we start filling out our brackets, or at least not the bracketology of things, and you put like schedules next to each other, who they play, who didn't they play. Yeah, Federal Judge has a mid-major schedule, if you follow my drift there, as you said. Really just this year, 2 optional claimings and that grade 2, impressive in the grade 2, but interesting, big time class jump, not even, a winner of a grade 1 yet. And you want to get that first one in the Breeders' Cup. All right. But yeah, the value will need hopefully to get up a little bit more before it really does start to be, probably one that we're both keeping our eye on. But moving on to race number 11. It's going to be the Breeders' Cup Mile. We are going a mile on the turf. Purse of $2 million. This is for 3-year-olds and up. Raider Jim, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is another one. You look at it, and there's 12 entries in it. And you've got 30-1, 30-1, 20-1, 20-1, 20-1, 20. It's like, wow, okay, kids. So now we got half the field that is no better than 20-1. And so that kind of right there, unless you're really just throwing money around and trying to cross your fingers that you get the spoiler, it really narrows down the field on who you think you should bet on. I like the outside horse in this one. I like the 12 spot Carl Spackler. I think at 6-1, you've got good value with Carl Spackler. Great horse. And then after that, I like the 7 horse, Porta Fortuna, another Irish horse. So I've got 2 Irish horses at the top of my ticket. Porta Fortuna at 4-1. That's not a lot of value, but I think the horse that's going to come in, continue its consistency and do well. And then North America is just getting, they're not going to win this race, because then I've got Notable Speech, the 6 horse. So you've got, for me, it's going to be Carl Spackler, the Irish horse, Porta Fortuna, the Irish horse, Notable Speech, the Great Britain horse. And after that, there's a horse, the number 1 horse, and forgive me for not being able to say the name, Ramatuli, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
At 5-1, and because it's on the rail, I like the position of the horse and could compete and could finish in the money. But I really think it's going to go down to 6, 12, and 7.
Yeah. I do apologize. Before I get to this race, I just had a thought. I wanted to share this and I forgot to. Want to go back to race 5. It's the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, where that's the Cogburn race, and we're talking also about Bradsell. One other thing, it's a sprinter in Europe. One thing I did forget to mention, in Europe, they don't turn on their sprint races. It's a straight kind of drag race. So again, if you're a believer in the horses, they understand, turning and stuff like that. I don't know. They know when the race is going to end because of the turns. If you're a believer in that, I just wanted to throw that out there. I do apologize, but I wanted to get that point in. Let me get myself back on track. Let's see. Yeah. So this Breeders' Cup Mile, I got a lot of thoughts here on this one. It's interesting to me because we are on the same page with Carl Spackler. Obviously, at 6-1, tremendous value considering that's kind of my number one horse here. And the thing that I really do like about Carl Spackler is this is a horse that can win in multiple ways. It can win on the lead. It can win stalking. It can do really whatever is kind of put in front of it. You got Tyler Gaffleone aboard as well. And all 5 of its races this year have been at this distance and obviously on dirt. 4 out of those 5 ended in the winner's circle. Really, really good stuff there from Carl Spackler, that Irish horse you, of course, mentioned as well. I do also like the 9 horse, Johannes. This horse isn't as versatile as Carl Spackler. I talked about kind of different ways of winning. It's going to be a horse that wants to be very close to the lead, at least halfway through this race. But I will say the post position might help Johannes just a little bit more than Carl Spackler, starting kind of all the way out there on not the rail, but the outside of everything, essentially. And I got really a good amount of kind of underneath. I am with you as well on Notable Speech. Personally, a little too inconsistent to get towards the top of my ticket. You know, when you go from 103 to 121 to 104 to 120 on those time form, that's just a little bit of too much fluctuation for a Breeders' Cup race. However, last time out, she ran a 105, which is kind of one of the ducks. Well, what's next? It would be time for a good bounce back. So that's something to keep in mind. Charlie Appleby is on that, or it's training there as well. The 7 horse, as well as a horse that Porta Fortuna used, the horse you mentioned as well, 4-1. I hope this number inflates. I don't think it will. I was very surprised to see 4-1 for this one. A much more consistent horse. But to get into the winner's circle, you're going to need to see a career best. Probably just to get into the money in this one, you might need to see a career best. And my final kind of throw a dollar or two at it. 10 Happy Rose. And look, I did, luckily at work today, it's month end, my department, very, very slow on month end. So I was able to do a little bit extra digging today. I read up about this horse, 10 Happy Rose, coming out of Japan. His horse won the Grade 1 Victoria Mile at 207-1. I spent a good 30 minutes trying to find a payout of that. I could only find it in yen, and I believe it was yen at least. And in my mind, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to say 207. I'll let everyone else do the math on that. So I don't know. Again, no other science behind it other than the fact is that this horse won at 207-1. I didn't even think that was possible to get that high. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there as I put my kind of bow on things for this one. But 207-1. Could you imagine, Raider Jim?
That'd be fantastic.
That's I mean, I can't even, like I said, I can't even fathom going to the window and scanning that ticket, $5 across the board. They'd probably say you need to go down to the IRS claiming. We'll meet you there. But woof. Anyways, moving on to our second to last race we will be previewing. It's going to be the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. It's race number 12, sorry. Purse of $1 million going a mile on the dirt, as it states. First horse that jumps out to me, I do believe this is the favorite. It is the 9 horse Domestic Product. Look, this is a horse that runs very, very well at a mile or 7 furlongs, where you want to kind of slice it. I love that speed and the jockey trainer combo. I mean, it's the Hall of Fame jockey trainer combo of Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt. 7-2. A lot of really good horses in this race, but I think this is the horse that has an opportunity to be the one at the top when it's all said and done. I'm looking at the rail for my second pick at 5-1. Wow. Saudi Crown. This is a horse that you're not going to see this horse get odds like this too often. The one thing I will say, a little bit of maybe the reason why we are seeing 5-1 and not closer. Despite it only being its 5th race of the year, we've seen a lot of travel. This horse started its year at fairgrounds, went to Saudi Arabia, then went to UAE, came back here to North America, at Island Park, and then coming all the way over here to Del Mar. Again, just throwing it out there. I'm not saying that that's a big deal per se, but it's definitely something to think about, and possibly why the odds are a little higher than I thought. And my final total value pick is my, I'm going to call this my midnight bourbon pick of the year. Obviously, if you've been listening to the podcast long enough, you know my affinity for kind of those value picks that always get in the money and maybe don't always win. And especially in Midnight Bourbon's case, God rest its soul, could never always finish second, maybe plenty of money, but always finish second. The 6 horse, Seize the Gray, has been by far the most profitable horse for me personally all summer, has essentially bankrolled my entire betting operation this entire season. It started at the Pat Day Mile when I had this horse across the board at 9.5 to 1. Took that ticket and said, you know what, let's do it again in the Preakness. Happened again. And yeah, okay, the Belmont and Jim Dandy, I may have fallen for it, but I got back on that horse. Pun very much intended in the Pennsylvania Derby. Look, I love this horse. I love Grays. This is a race that I think is more suited towards Seize the Gray's style. I mean, this was a horse that was running up against Dornoch and Fierceness, losing out to those Sierra Leones and the Jim Dandy. I think this is more its style, and at 10 to 1. Wow, I love that value. Raider Jim, your thoughts, the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile.
Yeah, we're pretty much seeing things eye to eye in this race. Now, Saudi Crown, I couldn't make up my mind on Saudi Crown. Spent a lot of time looking at it, looking at the results. Little too inconsistent for me, even at 5 to 1. But I do like the post position, like you said. But that's going to be an underneath for me if I use that. I really think what we're going to see here is kind of like the battle of the Godfathers, and it's going to be, the original Godfather. And that is the 6 horse, Seize the Gray, 10 to 1. T. Wayne is going to do something magical, and Jaime Torres is going to be riding this horse, but they're going to do something magical. And I think what we're going to see is a race between 6 Seize the Gray. And I got to get the right post number here because I don't want to misspeak. That is going to be the 10 horse.
Yeah.
Muth. Baffert's there. Muth was actually the place horse in last year's juvenile at the Breeders' Cup. So coming back, has had a good year, has done some great racing. They didn't back off at all with this horse for 2024. So Muth, and I think Muth is at 9 to 2 right now. Yeah. So you got a 10 to 1, you got a 9 to 2. Domestic Product definitely in the money there. So that's the 9 horse at 7 to 2. So my 4 horse, I'd probably put this one in as my 4th pick before I would put in Saudi Crown. And that's 14 on the outside. Skippy Longstocking at 4 to 1. That horse has, again, it's just a consistent performer. And Skippy Longstocking at 4 to 1, you can't beat it. I don't think it's going to do much on the line. I think it's just going to stay there at 4 to 1. But there's that thing again. If you've got Irad Ortiz holding the reins, you got a chance to finish in the money. Sappy Joseph's the trainer, but I really think Seize the Gray is going to run a good race with Moose, Baffert, and D. Wayne. What a Photoshop that would be. What an image, to see those two guys standing side by side. So we'll see what happens with Seize the Gray, Muth, Domestic Product, and Skippy Longstocking in the Dirt Mile.
Yeah, Muth scares me as someone who it's probably not going to make it onto my ticket just because I feel like at this point, if I still have a ticket, this will be the last race of Breeders' Cup weekend. If I still have a bullet left in the chamber, I'll be happy. The big thing about Muth, you mentioned, last year's Breeder Cup Juvenile, obviously losing out to Fierceness. If this horse, if Zidane Racing wasn't so which is a good thing, I guess, but very loyal to Bob Baffert. They could have done the old switcheroo for the Kentucky Derby. This would have been a horse that was, you know, probably a Kentucky Derby candidate.
Absolutely.
Obviously took a different route, but just goes to show you what this, you know, level this horse truly is at. And yeah, Skippy Longstocking. And you know what, now that I look at it, I did have a note on it. I just didn't click it. The only thing that I will say about Skippy Longstocking, never won a grade 1.
That's true.
Won grade 2s and grade 3s. But as I say, I mean, look, if you're going to pick one grade 1 to break that, you know, kind of ceiling, this would be it in the Breeders' Cup, but big, tall task. Really, really excited for this one. It's going to be a fantastic way to kind of finish up Breeders' Cup weekend, as again, that will be the final race of Breeders' Cup weekend. But the final race we will be talking about will be race number 8. It is the richest race in North America. $7 million. Not the Kentucky Derby doesn't get close to this. $7 million on the line. We are going 1.25 miles. This, of course, for 3-year-olds and up. Raider Jim, I'm going to give you the honors. Your thoughts on the Breeders' Cup Classic?
Yeah, this is a tough one. And it was the hardest part for me was to not put my 4th horse on the ticket, but I just can't help it. I think for some reason, Flavian and Chad are going to do their thing, and they're finally going to get Sierra Leone in the money. And at 12-1, this is a wonderful horse. It's a great thoroughbred, has definitely underperformed and disappointed on the track this year. At the same time, it's the right combination. It's the big stage, and it is the Breeders' Cup. Anything can happen. That's your value horse in this one for me. It's the 11-horse Sierra Leone. Does Sierra Leone win the race? I don't think so. Just finishes in the money. Very good chance to finish in the money. Now, who wins the race? You've got number 9, Fierceness, at 3-1. I think Fierceness is going to go down to Fierceness number 9 and number 3, City of Troy, at 5-2. Ryan Moore and Aidan O'Brien. They've done 5 of 6 grade 1 races this year. Holy cow. City of Troy is just another competitor, and definitely cream of the crop in this field. 3, City of Troy, 9, Fierceness, and then the other one I like is the Rail Horse, Forever Young, at 6-1. Actually showed in the Derby. Nobody remembers. It's like, who came in second in the 100-meter dash? Nobody remembers. Who came in third in the Derby? Nobody remembers. Well, it was Forever Young at 6-1. This is great value. Another one of those Japanese contingencies here, Ryusei Sakai and Yoshido Yahagi, and I think they have a good chance to not just finish in the money, but they could make a race out of it themselves.
Yeah, this one, I'm going to be honest. I got a lot here. My ticket is very messy. It is very convoluted. I'm even looking at it right now going, what how am I going to get through this? But,
what was I thinking?
Yeah, you know, this is going to be a very expensive race for me however I want to play this, but I'm going to start kind of with the tiers. We'll start, you know, at the top. And obviously the odds makers and me, I think, do see it very correctly, or at least similarly, I should say. City of Troy, obviously, the value is going to be an issue, but City of Troy is a horse that obviously has been racing in Great Britain. But this is a North American bred horse. It's sired by Justify. The dam was an Irish horse, so maybe not exactly. No, it is. I take that back. But anyways, it's been racing in Great Britain. So I think it's kind of gone under the radar. You know, plenty of really, really good racing happens in Great Britain. And fortunately, it just happens at like 4 or 5 in the morning here, at least on the West Coast. So it's a little difficult to get that rolling. It's hard to wake up that early for a 3-minute race and really keep an eye on things. But this is a horse I've been hearing about, you know, essentially, there were even question marks about whether we'd see this horse you know, possibly in the Derby, but, you know, would have had to take some opportunities there. Didn't happen. Did win the Epsom Derby, which of course is at Epsom, one of the biggest races back there. Really keep an eye there. And obviously Fierceness. I mean, my goodness, this is a horse that all eyes were on the Kentucky Derby. And I mean, you can go and see, I mean, a disaster in the Kentucky Derby. Since then has fought back in the Jim Dandy and very, very good in the Travers. beating Torpedo Anna, who we just gushed over a few races ago. And of course, Sierra Leone as well. So I think Fierceness is kind of finally, I talked about Fierceness's inconsistency. I don't know if that's fixed, but he's put together 2 good races in a row. At the very least, you can just kind of say, all right, we're moving in the right direction. I think City of Troy I give a little nudge there towards City of Troy because it's been a little more consistent. Now, working my way kind of through my second tier, look, Ushba Tesoro, the Japanese contingent, 12-1. I think this is a real contender in this race. And even last year, this was a horse that, I mean, it was 4-1 last year in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So this has been a race, or a horse, I should say, that's been highly thought of for quite some time. And I think he's been very, very good this year. You know, obviously losing out by a head in the Saudi Cup, which is the richest race in the world. Cool $20 million purse. So I'm sure second place probably pays out more than the Breeders' Cup Classic, but still very, very solid run, even beat out Saudi Crown, which we just talked about. Really, really do like Ushba Tesoro, kind of somewhat quasi underneath. And then as I go to the bottom of this, maybe the most intriguing horse of them all is number 14 next. Because this is a horse, you look at its last 6 races, it's currently 8-1. Every single one of them have been triple digits, 101 or higher. However, out of those 6 races, I got 1 grade 2, I got 2 grade 3s, and I got 3 ungraded stakes races. So you're running fast, but you're not running against the fastest. Well, this is the fastest of the fast. So post position, another bit of a question mark there. Wants to be towards the lead. We'll see if that happens. And then kind of my total big time value picks, 13, Newgate. This is one that Santa Anita handicap this year, and ever kind of since then, I've been kind of keeping my eye on it. It went to Dubai, ran in this Dubai World Cup, wasn't a factor. And then came back in the California Crown. Again, not really a factor. Finished 3rd, ran very well. I mean, finished behind National Treasure and Substansador, so that kind of tells you what level that was at. I'm just very, very interested to see how this goes or how this horse goes in this race at 20-1. You're not going to see Frankie Dettori and Bob Baffert get 20-1 too often, so take advantage. And then I think maybe the best value this entire race, like you, Raider Jim, how is Sierra Leone 12-1? I mean, look, I understand that Fierceness has beat this horse twice. I get it.
Right.
But 12-1? I mean, okay, but I lock that in right now. Can I lock that in? Because I do not expect that to hold. I feel like this is going to get closer to 4 or 5-1. Definitely a little bit of a head scratcher there. But, you know, one final one that I did just want to kind of, comment on, definitely not going to make it onto my ticket. Just wanted to bring it up. That's Derma Sotogake, another Japanese horse, 4-year-old, putting the blinkers on because this year has been, it's been a disaster. Let's be honest. We have to be honest. This was a horse that ran so well last year in the Breeders' Cup Classic, finished in 2nd place at 26-1. Such big expectations, ran in the Saudi Cup, ran okay, but since then has gone in the very wrong direction. So 20-1, I definitely understand that one. Don't fall for that one, or that name value of, oh, I remember this horse from last year, ran at 26-1, finished 2nd. I'm going to do it again. Feel like this is a different horse. I don't know what happened, but just wanted to kind of throw that PSA out there. But Raider Jim, any final thoughts here on the Classic?
Well, then I had to go back and look at Capit Trice just for fun.
At
30-1. Come on, 30-1. Irad Ortiz and Todd Pletcher.
Todd Pletcher and Irad Ortiz at 30-1. You're never going to see that again.
But yeah, I mean, it'd be fun, but I don't think that's going to make my ticket. No,
too good.
I am really looking forward. I know who by this time tomorrow, they're going to be winding up day one of the Breeders' Cup, the Future Stars Day. They should be down to their last race tomorrow. We're real close to it. And then, everybody goes out and parties for a little bit. They get back to the track and they start all over again. And then the lucky people at Del Mar get to clean up everything on Saturday so that they can everybody come back to start the second day of the fall session, if you will, for Del Mar. They will be running on Sunday. So going to be a great weekend.
Yeah. It's probably one of the first times ever that opening day has gone very, very under the radar. Still a bit of a head scratcher how opening day technically was today. It's Halloween. The Thursday before, I'm sure there's logistics behind it. I get it, but interesting. But I think also too, the availability maybe to the average fan as well, maybe helps because I don't know if anyone's looked at ticket prices for Breeders' Cup, but just enjoy TVG and all that stuff. And thank goodness.
And I would imagine it's kind of like going up and, you go up before or after the Rose Parade just to go into the big warehouse to see the floats. Might be that same kind of a thing, too, because you could go up there today. They've already got it decked out. They've got it dressed and ready to go. So you get to take the pictures, the long jeans clock and all that stuff. So, yeah, I'm sure it was probably actually a fun day to be up there. And who knows who you're going to run into.
You're right. There could be, big celebrities that are like, I got nothing else to do. Let's pop our head in. There's probably only be 15 people there. But any final thoughts for this episode of the original Call to Post, or was that?
Well, it is Halloween, so be good to the kids out there. If you're going to get in your car and drive to go get something to eat or whatever, make sure you are watching for little ones running in and out of the streets and crossing the streets, and just let's hope everybody stays safe tonight. And then on a very close to home to my heart, happy birthday, Pop. I wish you were here because it is my dad's birthday today. So he would have been 96.
Fantastic. Happy birthday. Happy heavenly birthday there to the elder Martinez. Fantastic.
Yeah. This guy, awesome. Again, and, I'm known as Raider Jim, and I was the only way I hope that I disappointed him as a son because he was a avid Charger fan. Oof. But when they would lose, my dad would actually call. In the days of answering machines, he would call, and all he would say is, ha, 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 and he'd hang up.
Yeah, that sounds like a dad for you right there. Yeah, that's good. But yeah, great Halloween birthday. That must have been a lot of fun growing up. I had a buddy who had a birthday on Halloween. He had a lot of fun on his birthdays. But my final thoughts, I'm going to keep it a little lighthearted. Look, we talked, I think, normally the way that things go, we're going to do our recap next week and, maybe touch on a few things on Del Mar, but really our focus is going to start shifting towards college basketball and football. And we'll kind of re-up with all of you and really start diving in February after the Super Bowl as we get ready for the Kentucky Derby. But I bring us all back to February when we all said, look, yeah, I know maybe we're not talking about the greatest races and a lot of 3-year-olds and whatever the Florida Derby or this or that. But before we know it, it's going to be time for the Breeders' Cup. And it moves so quickly, and not just the time frame from year to year, but also when it starts. It's absolutely incredible. Horse racing makes 5 hours go by quicker than you've ever seen. Even my brother, I took him for the first time this year to Del Mar. He's like, I cannot believe we've been here for 5 hours. He's like, I feel like we just got here. And the Breeders' Cup is going to do that. So at some point, take a breath, look around, or, take a moment to be like, man, how blessed we all are to be in a situation where we can spend a Friday and Saturday betting on the ponies. I mean, I'm taking a vacation day tomorrow. So yeah, I'm going to be getting paid to bet on the ponies. There's nothing better than that. So with that being said, like I said, just enjoy it. It's going to go by very quickly. I mean, I look at it, 14 races over 2 days. And then before you know it, we're looking around and it's time to go back to real life and get ready for the holiday season. But thank you all, or with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the original Call to Post here on the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. Talk to you all very soon. Enjoy the races and take care.
That's safe.